Welcome to Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the people that bring them to us. Before we get started, though, let's go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Barbara.
I'm Barbara Gilbert. I live in Easton, Maryland, and I'm a fairly new author. I started publishing in last year.
All right. Isabelle?
Hello, my name is Isabelle Hardesty. I live in Seattle with my husband and son, and I've been self-publishing since 2016.
All right, perfect. And Brigham?
My name is Brigham Vaughn. I've been published for about 7 years. I write LGBT romance, and I live in Michigan.
All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'll start with you, Isabelle. Tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a published author.
My husband, thank you. My husband and I, we love going to Dragon Con, even though we're in Seattle, we still go. And there was an anthology call that I said yes to and put a short story in, it was accepted. And that helped me actually finish something. And after that, I continued writing. I mean, I had written previously, but I never finished anything. That actually helped me finish something. So thanks to Dragon Con, I discovered how much I love writing and I continued.
Okay, what was the genre?
YA fantasy,
Okay.
which I love and I'm still doing.
All right, perfect. Brigham?
I pretty much stumbled into it. I had no plans of being an author whatsoever, but I was working for a hospital and had a boss I was really struggling with. So I had just been writing for fun, and a lot of people kind of pushed me into it and were like, oh, you should see if you can get published. And I'm like, I don't know. But there was a submission for an anthology, and I decided to polish up a short story and submit it. And it got accepted right away. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. So I kind of wound up being a hybrid author, doing a mix of working with a publisher and self-publishing. And I'm pretty much leaning toward self-publishing right now. But it was an accidental career move, but I do write full time now. So that was a really exciting transition to make a few years ago.
Perfect. Barbara?
Okay, well, I've done a little bit of writing here and there over the years, but I never really did anything significant. And mine was sort of accidental as well. My two boys were required every November to write for NaNoWriMo. And I was in a different state taking care of my mother. And I thought, well, I'll try and write with them to give them some incentive. And I did that 2 years in a row. Of course, didn't finish anything. And then kind of took a break once my oldest retired, and then, or not retired. I wish he retired. No, graduated from high school. And anyways, started getting the messages and everything again in 2018. And I thought I'd pick up where I left off on one of my first stories, which is now a short story that I give out as a free reader magnet. And decided not to, so I cooked up a whole different book, and it's a cross genre between dystopian apocalypse and time travel sci-fi.
All right, perfect. And Brigham, let's go ahead and talk about your new release. Tell us what it is and where you got the idea from.
Well, I just released a novella. No, I guess technically it's a novel. It's right in that 50,000 word range. So it depends on who you talk to, whether it's a novella or a novel. It's called Cabin Fever. It's a gay male-male romance. It's an age gap romance about a guy who falls in love with his roommate's father when he goes home with him for Thanksgiving. And honestly, I'm not even sure where the story idea came from. I tend to have story ideas pop into my head pretty much constantly, so I'm always like jotting down notes. And this was one I'd been wanting to do, a holiday romance, and I'd sort of had the father's best friend or best friend's father idea in my head for a while. And all of a sudden, Kevin and Drew just kind of leapt onto the page and told me their story, and I wrote it actually very quickly. I wish I could give you a better story about where the idea came from, but they just sort of appeared one day and said, all right, here you go. So that tends to be how it goes for me.
I was going to ask, since Barbara just mentioned Nano and we just recently finished, and you said it was 50,000 words, I was wondering if that's where it came from.
Mhm.
So you wrote it at a different time of the year? Or did you write it during November?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I think I finished it in October, actually,
Oh, okay.
which is the earliest I have ever finished a holiday book. Usually I'm like, getting to the 1st of December and going, oh no, I'm getting too close. I need to have this done. I need it off to my editor. But this year I was actually very organized and got it set up. I didn't do anything for Nano this year, but I have in the past.
Okay. Barbara, how about you?
Okay, well, my new release is the third in my Future Apocalypse series. It's called Homeward Bound. And basically my main character is still trying to get back to her present time where she had left from, but inadvertently has to go back in the past, make some changes, go back again, fix those changes, finds out that she's in a different timeline, and eventually she does get back. But there's a little bit of a twist to it, as far as like, does she stay where she, does she stay back in her current time, or does she go back? So, and where I came up with the story, and I did start the first book in Nano back in 2018. And I was kind of shocked that I finished, and I'm like, well, nobody's going to know about it. So what the heck, throw it up on Amazon. That's what I did. But I also decided that I wouldn't be able to finish the book in general, so I split it into 3 so I could spend more time and take time doing it. And basically where I got the idea from, honestly, that's a good one. I don't really remember. I just remember starting to think about what I wanted to write. I know I tend towards the apocalypse side. Like all of my stories that I started in Nano have something to do with the apocalypse. How I decided to do time travel, I don't remember, but I used a strong female character that was brilliant. She, you don't expect females to be extremely brilliant all the time, but she's beyond brilliant. And of course, I forgot to write any notes down. I thought you couldn't. And so when the day came, I looked at the screen and went, crap, where do I start? I don't even remember. Because I had the whole story kind of cooking in my head. And I used my neighbor as a sounding board, talking about all the different ideas and what I could do and how I could do it. And some of the stuff made it in, but it was kind of nice to have someone to kind of talk with, so.
Isabelle.
So my book is also part of a series. It's book 2 in a series. My book is Midnight in Bellfleur. Book 1 is The Witch of Bellfleur. And the idea came to me because growing up in Miami, which I was born and raised in Miami, my mom and my sisters and I would watch telenovelas. So the main character is Juliet, Mariana Fontaine, and she is a telenovela actress, recent high school grad, and she turns into a witch. So it's just fun, and I love stories about witches. So I just blended everything in and my love of nature, and the book bubbled up. I also had people to sound off of. So I used my husband, who's also a writer, and my sisters, and some of my brothers as well, and just kind of worked on it and enjoyed the process of writing both of these books. So I love them.
All right, perfect. So Barbara, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your process. You mentioned a little, you use your neighbor as a sounding board. What do you do? What's your normal process like for writing? If normal can be used nowadays.
I guess you could say I take pantser to the extreme. I basically think about what I'm going to write like it always happens at night when I want to go to sleep. I mean, I wrote an entire prequel in my head, but I'll be thinking of all the things, or I'm thinking about a problem that I need to solve for, the next chapter. And I usually don't write it down. Now I've gotten in the habit with using Scrivener, keeping track of my characters, the places and things of that nature, and started writing some notes down about what I had been thinking about. But basically I sit down and I start writing, and I just, whatever comes, into my head. I do, like I said, I plan way in advance in my head where I'm going to go with the story. And then I sit down and I just go with it. And I let it kind of flow whichever direction it's going to go. And, I might plan that a character is going to die at a certain point. And like in book 2, the character said, oh no, I'm going to die sooner. So it's kind of a surprise for me when I'm writing, because I don't already know what the character's going to do to a complete extent. So it gives me some surprise.
Do you normally write specific times of day, or is it just whenever?
It's whenever I'm able to. I'm have a lot of pain and chronic fatigue, so I spend a lot of time like getting up, writing a little bit, take a nap, get up, do some more, do something else, come back. So it's a bit of a process and takes a while for me to do. Book 3, I pushed really hard because I wanted to take a break, believe it or not, for a little bit from writing and kind of work on my writing skills a little more. So I pushed really hard to get book 3 out before the end of the year, which means I have published 2 books in 1 year, which is a lot for me to do, but I managed.
All right, Isabelle.
I have a 3.5-year-old son, so similar to what Barbara said, my time is, I used to be a morning writer. That doesn't always work out anymore. And I tried to do it, but nothing was really getting done. So I'm a whenever I can do it writer right now. And I also do have a very strong feeling of my book before it comes to me with like images. And I'm a visual artist for, since I was a child. So I'm very visual, and I have like concrete feelings, and then I start doing some outline. Then I do have to just, at one point, you just have to start writing it out. And it's a beautiful roller coaster. So you're just kind of doing things with your outline, and later on you go off of it, and it's fun to see. And the characters, they speak to you, scenes come to you, and sometimes they got to go get off. Sometimes certain characters can come to you, and then you realize maybe they can merge into a more powerful character. And it's definitely a process that's so enjoyable. So I love it when I'm in it. I love the characters, even the bad ones. I really love my bad characters. So sometimes too much, and I have to remember, gotta balance it out. But that's my process. Sometimes I like to have certain things near me when I'm writing. Not as easily now with my 3.5-year-old, because he likes those things too. So, but when he's older, I can bring some of them out again, just to just some fun little things I have, whether it's candles or certain figurines, but certain things that make me in my happy place. And many times it's also coffee or tea.
All right, perfect. Brigham.
Well, being able to write full time gives me a lot of freedom to kind of structure my schedule the way I'd like, and not having any health issues to deal with, or children. I have a little bit more flexibility than either of you do. I recently, this past spring, I hooked up with a small group of other authors, and we have a sprint group on Discord, and it's been really fantastic because it allows me to have a much more structured schedule. And we don't always quite manage it, but we try to do from about 8 a.m. to noon, do 25-minute sprints throughout the morning. And, there are days, you have to go to the grocery store, or there's an appointment or something, but there's usually someone else there to sprint with. And it really helps keep me into a good routine and feel like I have a little bit of structure to my day. And then there's always people to bounce ideas off of and say, hey, I'm stuck on this. Can you help me, figure this out? As far as taking a new story from beginning to end, usually I tend to get the conflict in my head first. That, whatever that conflict point, 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through the book, that's that scene that'll pop into my head. And I have a theater background, so I tend to see little people on a stage in my head. And, so usually because I write romance, it's a guaranteed happily ever after at the end, right? So I know roughly where the characters are going to end up. Usually I have a pretty good idea of where they're starting, like who they are roughly, and then kind of what that big conflict will be. And so I sort of start at that 2/3 point and work outwards. I don't write linearly. I rarely start at the chapter 1 and go to the end. I usually am all over the place. I do try to plan it out some ahead of time, though. I use some software program called Plotter that I just discovered this year that I love. And it's really great for character ideas, for keeping track of their little character bios, and for plotting out, kind of the major points in each scene. I am not at all a full out plotter. Characters tell me what they're doing and go rogue on me all the time, but I kind of do a couple of chapters at a time. So I know what I'm working on, say that week or whatever, and have an idea of what I need to be focused on right then. But occasionally an idea will pop in my head and I'll, go off and work on something else. But I'm sort of halfway between a plotter and a pantser.
Mm-hmm.
So Isabelle, going back to your next book, the book 2, and this doesn't have to be book 2, actually, anything in your series, what surprised you the most while writing it? It could be a character, could be a plot point, or it could just be something you discovered about yourself as a writer.
What that I like, it surprised me that I really like my character Fiona, who I wanted to push her one way and I'm trying to redeem her a lot, but I actually have to let her be bad. So it surprises me how you get these feelings for a character, you want them to be a certain way, but you have to just kind of just say, I want you to be bad. But I guess I have to see and revisit how bad she becomes. So it's a living document, I guess, in a way, as it's happening until the end. So right now there are a lot of things that are up in the air, but it surprises me sometimes how attached I get to my characters and how real they are to me. And so as I write them, sometimes when you do things as a writer, readers may wonder, why did you do that? But I know that for me, I think about everything I do with my characters very thoroughly. So
Now, are you impacting the character, or are they impacting you?
I think she's impacting me in this point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Brigham, how about you? Something that surprised you?
I was a little surprised by one of the characters' reactions in the book I just wrote. Like I said, it's a best friend's father romance where Kevin goes home at Thanksgiving with his best friend Jason, and he clicks with Jason's dad, Drew. And, they just have this great immediate connection, but Drew and Kevin are convinced that Jason is going to be totally against the idea, won't support them being together, will be totally freaked out by the whole thing. And I don't want to give too much away because this is, a relatively major plot point, but I was surprised by how Jason reacted to it and what his reasoning was. And it was almost like I had built all these little breadcrumbs in before that, without even realizing it, of why he was ultimately going to be okay with their relationship. And I hadn't realized it as I wrote it. And so that was fun to me too. Like I surprised myself in, I think, subconsciously planning ahead for why the motivation was there, why it made sense for him to actually support them being together, why he takes them both by surprise with being accepting why this whole worked. I was really pleased with myself for subconsciously, sticking in all these little tiny things that hint toward it without even realizing. That was fun.
Perfect. Barbara.
I think what surprised me most about it was the characters. Some of the characters took on either some of my characteristics or even health problems, and even some of the characteristics of other people I know. I wasn't really expecting that. And some of the characters that I thought were going to be a certain way turned out to be different. And then I think the biggest thing that surprised me of all was, believe it or not, my nieces and nephews really enjoyed the book. So I already kept my language down to, just the H word basically, and only sparsely, but I started trying to make sure that I kept the next book, which had to have a little bit of violence in it, as minimal as possible, so that they could enjoy the book as well. And so I also found that I was weaving in morals without realizing it. I'd have one character's like, oh, well, we should do this. And another character's like, well, no, you should only do that in defense of yourself. Or, this is stealing and you shouldn't do that. And it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, but I still had a character explaining, it's not the right thing to do. So it was interesting to find how we interweave some of our own life experiences into our characters in our books.
All right, perfect. So the next question, and I'll start with you, Brigham, is as a writer, most writers are voracious readers. Have you found that being a writer impacts the way you read? And if so, how?
Yes, absolutely. I read less than I used to, and that was a really unfortunate discovery. I would like to read more. Partly it's time. I'm pushing myself pretty hard to release as quickly as possible. So I am writing a lot, and I feel like my brain has somewhat of a maximum word count per week. There are a number of words that can go in or they can go out. And if they are going out, there are fewer that can come in. I'm trying to find a better balance with that. I'm actually taking a week off before Christmas. A friend is bribing me to take the time off. So my plan is that I will do nothing but bake and read for that week, which will be really nice. So I have been stockpiling Christmas books and I'm really looking forward to it. I do miss reading. I would like to do it more. It's just, it's what my brain can handle. And this is where the ideas come from. This is how they get out. I've kind of got to protect that ability to write. So it was a really strange realization for me. Sometimes I am a little more critical reading. I'm reading the book and I'm thinking, well, I don't know that I would have done it that way, or, being conscious of some of the word choices or like the editing or the flow of it. But, for the most part, I can turn that off when I do have the time to read. So.
Okay. Barbara, how about yourself?
I actually found myself reading more, and I think it was mainly because of all the author connections I made prior to actually even writing. And when I got into writing, I learned really fast that you need a whole village of people to help you. You've got your beta readers and your ARC readers, advanced reader copy people. And I found out that and it's only right to do it. If you're going to ask somebody to beta read for you or to ARC read for you, you should, if you have the ability to do so, beta read and ARC read for other authors. And I did have to back off on Mike Krause a little bit. Oh man, that guy throws out books faster than I can read. so I'd only stick with the one series I start, you know, but I learned by beta reading, I learned how to be more, how to look better at my own writing and find errors and fix those. ARC reading just gives you the ability to learn how to do better reviews for other authors. But when I was learning things from my author friends about things like show more, tell less, when I'd be reading a book, I would specifically be paying attention to how the author described their characters. And I'm still having a hard time trying to figure out how to, you know, make it a little bit of a meatier description, you know, get more into just eye color and hair color and all that. So I'm still learning, and that's kind of why I'm going to take a break and work on this very expensive fiction writing course I got into. But, you know, so that's where I find I do a lot more reading, and I even got into audiobooks. And I find when I can't do a lot of reading, the audiobooks, which my mind cannot handle. I mean, I can't sit and listen to an audiobook. My brain just goes off into wildly yonder. But I find driving, it helps me stay awake when I'm driving. And when I'm painting, I picked up painting by number. I do other paintings too, but I can focus on the painting and listen to the book. And of course, entertain anybody around me as I'm laughing about characters and, you know, snickering about Skippy and the Expeditionary Force, you know, things like that. So, yeah.
All right. Isabelle.
I think before I wrote, I was possibly a bit more critical and loving certain things. But then once I started writing, it made me definitely much more appreciative of the different ways that authors put words on paper and different techniques they use. Let's say it's a setting and they're able to do it in like through 3 words. It just makes you have to reread it and go 3 words, that's it. And sometimes if a different author uses more words and you just get lost in all of those words, but it's not too much, then you can kind of look to see, wow, that was maybe a lot of paragraphs, but I want more. So it's beautiful to see people with their craft and how they weave and enchant us. So I love it. So I love it when they can do it with a few words or a lot of words and in different ways. Also describing people as well is interesting to me. Dialogue, I love writing dialogue, so I love reading dialogue and the different ways people do it. I love reading. Again, also, I don't have as much time as before, so it's limited, but when I do get a chance to read, I just will dive in and take my time and learn as much as I can as I'm reading, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Barbara, what do you hope someone takes away from reading your new book?
I hope that, one, they take away the fact that, you know, it's a way to escape and entertaining, but it's also educational. My books, like I mentioned before, have a few morals weaved into it, but there's a lot of preparedness things in it. My main character has a go bag, even when she went into the future. She has skills that helps her survive in that apocalyptic future. I had to do a lot of research, but in book 2, they were traveling across the Cascade Mountains, so they had to learn how to identify and pick, you know, especially her, my main character, had to learn how to identify plants from medicinal to edible to making a smokehouse, and, you know, and all these different things, you know, hunting and gathering. So there's a lot that I hope that, you know, my readers can take away as educational as well as entertainment.
All right, Isabelle.
I also want people to be entertained. I want readers to be entertained with my books and just for it to be an escape, especially with this year. Yeah. And I want them to know that it's important to be yourself, whatever that means, and just to like root yourself and to take chances. And when you get beat down, which Juliet will get beat down in this book, a lot of things get taken away from her, which I think we can relate with this year. It's to see how she just climbs back up, and she's gonna fight for what is important to her. She's going to get in touch with some of her roots. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun journey. And I hope they can just take away escape, fun, and being themselves truly.
All right, perfect. And Brigham.
Escape, of course. That's what books are for, right? But with it being a holiday romance, I think this year, especially, people are looking for that really cozy, warm, family feeling connection. Is huge since we're all so distant. But in general, I write LGBT romance. I write about people who often struggle with their own families, with people who struggle to find that connection, who struggle to find acceptance. So I really want readers to take away that sense of family and connection, and that family isn't found and created. It isn't necessarily automatically given to you, but that you can create that sense of family and connection for yourself. And really at the holidays, that's especially important, and this year more so than ever, I think.
All right, perfect. Well, that should do it for us. Before we leave, though, let's go back around the room and let people know where they can find you on the internet and where they can find your books. And we'll start with you, Isabelle.
You can find me at isabellehardesty.com. My books are on Amazon, Kobo, and Nook, Barnes & Noble.
All right, perfect. And Brigham.
I'm pretty much available everywhere online under Brigham Vaughn. My website is brighamvaughn.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as author B Vaughn. Pretty much anywhere social media, it's all Brigham Vaughn. My books are available on Amazon. Some are available on Barnes & Noble and Kobo, but most of them are enrolled in Kindle Unlimited on Amazon. So
All right, perfect.
best place to find me.
And finally, Barbara.
Okay, you can find me, of course, on Facebook under Barbara Gilbert. And then you can also find me BJ Gilbert 815.wixsite.com/sci-fi author. I am working on a full website that'll be under just my name, but that'll be sometime next year. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram. I have a few different usernames for that. Barbara J. Gilbert 2. I don't know why I put a 2 and not a T for Twitter, and then BJ Gilbert 815 for Instagram. And that's kind of a mix of photography and books because I'm a photographer as well. And I think that's about it. Oh, and you can find me on Amazon. Can't forget that. Find my books. It's really simple. Just type Future Apocalypse and it'll come right up. You don't even have to remember my name. And then for paperbacks, you can get paperback book at Barnes & Noble's online, Walmart online, any of the online retailers, Books A Million. You can order the paperback. If you want ebook or audiobook, you have to go through Audible or Amazon. And you can get paperback on Amazon as well. And they're both on sale right now.
All right. I want to thank everyone for coming and thank you for watching. See everyone next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.